You are up, Commissioner.
All right, Bannock County Commissioners are in session Tuesday, June 17th, and starting us off today is none other than Mr. Adam McKinney. Adam.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Adam McKinney, Chief Technical Officer today under the guise of IT today. Today I was searching for a signature on a letter of agency to allow Spyglass to give us another telephone system audit. We've done this a couple times in the last couple years. They've been able to find us some savings, and I'm here to ask if we can have them audit our system one more time. And this has been, I did run this through legal. It's the same that we've signed in the past, and they had no problems with it. So.
And are they, if they can't find us money, are they charging us?
No.
Or?
No, if they can't save us any money, they won't charge us. And if they do find us some savings, I believe the cost was pretty nominal last time. It was about $1,200 was about what it cost. So it's been about 3 years, I think, since we completed this last audit. I just thought it was about time to have a look at it again.
And the main thing they're looking at is like line usage?
Yeah. Primarily, it'll be telephone utilization from CenturyLink as a provider for our wireline services. So things like, are we having lines that aren't being utilized that we can cut off? Last time they found us a few plain old telephone lines that we were paying $50-ish a month for that we were not utilizing. So they look at usage on the lines, they look at what the line's being used, and if we can combine them or if we can eliminate them outright. They also go through our cell phone stuff with this, so there would be, they would look at the Verizon bills as well to audit the cell phones. And again, that just comes down to how much utilization are we doing. I know last time they found a couple of cell phones that had nearly no usage on them at all. They had been in the trunk of a car for many years. It turned out they were the detective's hostage negotiation phone, so we did have to keep those. But stuff like that is
Right.
what they'll uncover.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just on the top of the next page, is it got filled in? Okay. Ours just didn't have filled in the report, so I just want to make sure it had a date
Yep.
there. So I'd go ahead and make a motion that we approve the chair to sign the Spyglass contract for phone lines.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Kyle?
Morning, Kyle Brumster, Public Works Director.
Bridger Morrison, City of Cheviot Public Works Director.
Welcome, Bridger.
Thank you.
Nice to see you this morning. Kyle?
Me and Bridger had been talking a little bit earlier in this spring and what projects they had going on in Cheviot and what projects we were doing. When they found out we were chipping, we looked to see where we intertwine and connect. Some of the places, as you guys know, when they do city limits, it goes off a parcel and it has to be a full parcel. And so we have some of our roads that are split right in half. That's Cheviot and county. So we were looking at what ways we could work together on doing some of these. And then while we were at that, we had another road that they were in need of chipping. So what we're looking at is, if we have the time, and I think we will, is while we're right there that we chip it. I've got a different one here, but it'd be more around 2.5 miles for the city of Cheviot. Some of that would be half and half, so we would have them pay half of it and we would pay half, and then some is totally in the city of Cheviot. And they would pay for all labor, materials, and equipment.
Okay. Do we have any legal issues with that?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay. Any questions or concerns from?
No. Kyle will invoice, well, their office will invoice it, give us a copy, so that when we receive payment, we know what it's for.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just charge what work happens there. What we try to do is have the materials billed directly to there, so it doesn't have to go in and out through us, and then it doesn't mess with my budget. But yeah, that's kind of, and then the labor and stuff will just be invoiced back to Bannock County.
Okay. Commissioners?
No, we've done it in the past.
Used that for years, even city to city, so it works pretty.
Can I have you sign this one instead with the change in the mileage?
Bridger, you got any comments on this?
We just appreciate the help from the county. I think it's a good use of coordination and resources. The roads that are being looked at are those kind of on the edge of town that are a little more rural feel. And so this is just a great treatment, which is a little bit hard for the city to get done in that type of quantity. And so teaming with the county is a huge benefit to the city, so we appreciate it.
Okay.
Well, if it's really good, we want credit. If it isn't so good, we're blaming Chuck.
We'll wait till all the comments come in.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
What particular road is that?
So
Where are we talking?
So we're talking High Line, and you
Okay.
can kind of,
Highline Road from Chubbuck Road to Tyhee, most of that's in the city. There's a small section in the city.
They got their trench all done and everything across there?
Yes.
Okay,
We've
so
been
that's the
pushing.
area you're talking?
Uh-huh. And then the other area is Philbin Road, so from just north of Chubbuck Road to the city limits, which would be our end, is about the canal. And then I think the county had planned to do the rest of that to the
Go all
north,
the
so
way
it's
up.
just a consistent treatment.
Totally makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, well then I would move that we approve the interagency request form as presented and discussed. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Kyle, do a good job so that we can take.
Yep, I don't want to be on the bad end of that one.
Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you.
Heather?
Heather Sudley, Bannock County GIS Manager. Just giving a quick department update for Commission. Kind of quick overview of projects we've been working on over the last approximately year or so. Been helping with the mapping side of the OpenGov / Cartograph implementation that Public Works has been working on. As far as our teams go, we're pretty much wrapped up on initial like map and data creation for that. We still help with updates to applications as needed, some user support, some texture support here and there, but for the most part we are at a pretty good stable place with that right at the moment, which has been nice. That's been quite a project to get that up and running. Day-to-day stuff we do, just normal data entry, addresses, subdivisions, records of survey, new roads, that kind of fun thing. That's most of our day-to-day work, or those kind of data entry and cleanup. We are still working, 911 for us is a little bit of a two-part project. There is working with our Motorola rep to keep the 911 system updated. Again, new addresses, new roads, any boundary changes, things like that get pushed up that way. Working with that contractor with Motorola has been extremely beneficial. They've been able to catch issues that I just don't have the internal knowledge of the system to be able to translate what's going wrong, and they can find it and come back and tell me what I need to fix on my end. That has been very, very nice to have. Part of that too is we've been working with some of the local police, fire, etc., to clean up some boundary lines for service areas. So county EMS boundaries have been cleaned up a little bit. I've been working with fire to get those lines. Those should be good. And the city of Pocatello's EMS team is working on getting a meeting with me to clean up some of their boundaries so we just have lines where everybody wants them to be. The other part for 911 is working with the state for the next gen 911 services. We actually just had a meeting last week about core services, which is the first major part of that implementation. We should be pretty good on that one, making sure all of our boundary lines line up with what they need them to be. And then I also help with, not quite of a consultant, it's just giving advice when asked on data standards, data policies, how to get data into a system, how we might pull it out, that kind of a thing. We are wrapping up our Eagle View pictometry image capture for the county. They just finished flying a couple of weeks ago. From the preliminaries I saw, we should be getting some good information on that one. Product delivery should be probably about 2 months out. It's usually towards the end of the summer is when we actually get the hard drive that has that. And then we will push that out to all the parties that are involved with that. Last thing we got for us is just some kind of community engagement. I do like kind of keeping us involved, not only with the GIS community, but kind of general community if possible. We participated in ISU's Bengal STEM Day back in February. We set up a geocaching event for middle and high schoolers, and let them like learn how to use a phone to find stuff, and they get little prizes for doing that. We also had a a bad map example that they could write on and give feedback on. It's actually the map that they give them when they sign up to help them guide them around where they're supposed to go. It's quite awful, unfortunately. So we're actually also going to be working with, I always forget how to pronounce his last name. It's Logan, I want to say McDougall, who is head of that project, and we'll get him some new maps built based on the feedback that the kids gave us. So that should be a good one. We also involved with the state's Geospatial Committee and the technical working groups involved with that. I, in particular, part of the public safety and addressing groups. So we'll talk about problems people are having, offer solutions. Not as frequently, but we used to do quite a bit of actually making like formal suggestions to the state on how to proceed with boundary lines and things like that. So. And then we're also part of a national group called the Geospatial Professional Network. Again, I do a lot of addressing public safety committee meetings with those guys. All in all, for me personally, I spend probably a handful of hours a month on various things. I get called to help with various projects or offer advice on things, so it's kind of nice to be involved on that level with those kinds of communities. Coming up in the immediate future, I know we're still looking at helping Downey with some addressing issues. Coinciding with that is elections needs help getting just their entire address database. They don't use our data, they pull it from somewhere else, and we need to figure out how to get those two systems to hopefully talk to each other, or at least align a little bit better than what they are currently. I know
Heather, what's
yes.
the point in that? What are you trying to do that for?
So they have run into issues where it's because it's two different systems. We have addresses in our system that are not in theirs. So when people come to register to vote, their addresses aren't in that system. And we just need to get that better aligned. So, and I know it feels early, but the 2030 census is already starting their preparatory work. So they've started to release data that we can bring in and compare to our system to help make sure things align. So when things do actually pick up in a couple of years, that will hopefully streamline that process. And then just regular data cleanup and all that fun stuff.
Very good.
So, talking about addresses and stuff, along South Fifth, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
How long does it take to get addresses and all that stuff into the system?
The short answer is it depends.
Or the process of
The
doing
process.
it?
If it's for the county, when they come in to do building permits, planning starts that process. They have a set of requirements they have to turn in, building plans, site plans, things like that. They ping us as part of that system. We have standards for going in and measuring out where an address should be based off of an established grid. We calculate an address for them, return that back to planning. I'd say 90% of the time, that's no problem. We just go through, it's a 20 to 40 minute process in grand total. They have an address, planning moves on at that point in time. Addresses definitely follow what you call the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, they're just fine. Those 20%, addresses will take days sometimes if they're complicated or if there are issues, but that's not very common. For City of Pocatello, we usually get some kind of a notice from them. I'm on their mailing list. They either do a whole subdivision or I get letters if they have individual houses that need adjustment. Those are pretty easy, straightforward. We just put them in. Our communication lines with Chubbuck are not fantastic right at the moment. I'm working on that. I do have a way to pull their data, but it's not on a consistent schedule right at the moment, and that's something I would like to improve.
We've had quite a few subdivisions and stuff within the county itself. So.
Yeah. Yeah. For the most part, we only issue addresses when they come in with the building permits. Even on some of those subdivisions, we will occasionally pre-address a subdivision to our best guess. That's usually for the post office, is the one who requests that. We do not release those addresses to anybody. We've had that system abused in the past and it's caused problems. So officially we put out an address when a building permit has been put in.
Well, with the EMS and elections and all this stuff, I mean, there's a lot more behind the scenes that you don't really realize.
Addresses are probably the second most used database set that we have behind parcels. And in a lot of ways, I actually would almost say addresses are utilized more, especially with the upcoming 911 systems.
How do you magically determine an address out in the county? Is it so many feet? Is there some metrics that you use to?
Short answer is it's so many feet. We have a grid system that is, I do not actually even remember when that grid system was put into place. There's a zero mark a little bit south of Income that's considered, it's kind of a 0 point, and everything spreads out from there. So for every mile, you have basically 1,000 addresses per mile that you're allowed. So even on roads that are kind of wonky, we can kind of get a rough estimate of about where things would be by measuring that out. So yeah, it's basically by how many feet off you are from whatever that 0 mark is.
Cool. How often does your system, not just your system, I guess I'm looking for, how often does your GIS system, especially satellite, update, refresh?
The background, is that the background imagery that you're thinking of?
Well,
or-
all I know is if you're driving down and you're on your fancy little thing and it shows you how to drive, some of them are weird. Others are right on target. I just want, somebody is refreshing that data
Yes.
from somewhere.
That gets unfortunately a little bit complicated. We keep up with the post office on a regular basis. They're part of an email that gets sent out once a month-ish or so, depending on how many we have. So the post office information is usually up to date. Anything third party, we have a hard time getting updated consistently. They are supposed to come to us for authoritative data. Google, I could not tell you the last time that Google has actually come to us for any kind of data on that one. A lot of the other third parties, I suspect, I do not know this for certain, I suspect that they're using AI processes. We know for a fact this is what Google does. They do their Street View drives, and they can use the imagery they collect to pull information, which is why you can get pretty close with some Google stuff, but then it gets weird. Other third parties used to be very good about coming to us for data requests. That has dropped significantly in the last few years. Again, I suspect they're using AI processes to just try to pull their best guess for information, and that's why everybody's a little different and why it can get really wonky.
I can tell you by experience driving a FedEx truck that isn't always accurate in the counties. I mean, it gets you somewhat close, but sometimes you're guessing, or it's guessing for you, which that's
It's
why,
guessing for you,
that's
which
why I
is
was
the
trying to
dangerous
see
part.
how often,
Yeah.
and even the pictures it tries to show, or whatever it is. That, yeah, there's got to be a real delay in refreshing.
There can be, and the
Those
more
pictures.
rural you are, the worse it gets,
Okay.
unfortunately. Like Pocatello, I think Google does a drive-through about once a year, thereabouts. Everybody else, I think, honestly, just either buys it or steals it from Google. So there are some groups that we have better communications with than not. There's a group out there called Here, which is OpenStreetMap is the product they're most known for. They used to contract with FedEx, UPS, and they were pretty good for a while. That's dropped off in quality recently. And that's actually a very big discussion on the national level of what we can do as organizations to try to push them to keep better up to date. Unfortunately, that's a tough discussion.
How will some of that change with the next Gen 911?
Hopefully it should improve. Part of the next Gen 911 is trying to get people to collaborate their data and put them into larger systems. The hope is that if something catastrophic were to happen, if we had a massive earthquake in this area, none of our local dispatchers are going to be able to do anything. But if our data is good enough, that can be fed down to, say, maybe Salt Lake or up into Montana, and they can do dispatch because the data is good enough that they can still read what's going on. As those processes come together, everything should start to improve. The hardest part of this is you're dealing with proprietary systems that we don't know how they get or use the data versus what we make readily available. We can just present it as best we can and hope. It's very frustrating.
Especially for emergency services. I mean.
And that's why we push that into our systems directly. They're not dependent upon third parties to try to fish that information out. We give it to them directly, and we do regular updates with them for that.
So how do you communicate with the surrounding counties? Or do they reach out to you for data sharing or collection?
Sometimes they do. We help out a little bit. We are helping with Power County for their 911. So they send me, they don't have a lot of updates. They don't have the kind of growth that we typically do. So it's occasional updates, and I'll push it out to the 911 system. Other areas, it's usually more, not direct help with things, but more advice. I've had a couple nearby counties just call on, like, how do you go about this process, kind of a thing, so.
Okay. Good.
Working with Tom Calton has been, he's more of that contact point now than I used to be, so I don't get a lot of the direct interactions, but he still, we interact with groups and get people together for stuff.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, anything
Right.
else?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
All right, thanks. Christie.
Chris Clauser, Comptroller. The only item I have for the board is one of the commissioners went to IAC and drove his own vehicle. Traditional practice is to see if there's a county vehicle available. There was an assessor vehicle available. So I just need to see how we're going to handle this. Best prior practice has been if an employee takes their vehicle for personal reasons, we would pay one-way mileage.
And to add upon that, we talked about it before the conference, not after.
Correct.
And so we need to follow the process. I mean, when I talked to Christie, she hadn't asked the assessors, but she didn't think there was a vehicle available at the time. And so that's why that it was submitted the way that it was. But like I said, the key point to me is we always talk about this ahead of time. We've required that of all employees, and the commission has to follow the same rules.
Yeah, we need to try to follow that. Any thoughts?
Nope. We all know who the guilty party is. We don't need to point it out. Everybody, he said 2 steps back.
I'm just giving you your opportunity to speak up should you choose. Or you can just take your beating kindly.
Sometimes when you have nothing to say nothing.
Okay.
So am I good processing this with one-way mileage?
So that would be my suggestion, is even after the fact, if it's one way, that's our general process that we've approved, and without having pre-approval.
And we have, if an employee has a reason that they would choose to take their own vehicle.
Right, we've made exceptions.
The veterans officer has gone to Boise, she's got family there.
I've done it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a good option if there's a reason to take a personal vehicle.
Yeah. Okay, so do that.
We will go ahead and get this reissued. I can probably push it through for payment on Thursday.
I'm just gonna be without until you do.
which you're out without right now.
I'm good. You took that pretty well.
I'll
Good
tell you
job.
what, you have to choose when you fall on a sword.
All right, with that, we'll just move on now. We'll go to the consent agenda. Is there any questions on the consent agenda, which looks like it's primarily just salary rate approval forms
I
today?
didn't see anything, so. With that, I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
All right, we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There is one salary approval form that I need the board to sign the front. Melissa Hartman doesn't have.
I signed
Okay, thank you.
in her lieu
Okay.
instead of her on that one. With that,
Commissioner, are we able to go over the insurance stuff that, I think I had that on this agenda?
It's Thursday.
Oh, it's on Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
don't scare me like that.
Threw me a loop too.
Wasn't on my agenda.
I was just reading through this.
All right, with that, we will stand.